Welcome back to CES 2020. I'm here with Jeremy Whaling from EVGo. And EVGo is the largest charging network in the US, with the exception of Tesla. And we're going to talk a little bit about how EV charging is evolving. Give us a little rundown of how EVGo fits into the charging network environment.
Yeah, so for us, it's really about, we want to be where the drivers are. So we really focus a lot on, like our urban areas or some of our corridor charging as well, and kind of being where the drivers are, and where they're already doing their errands or their shopping or that sort of thing.
And one of the big things that's come out recently from EVGo is the addition of the Tesla charging connector.
Yes, so, we love that.
Yeah, so what do you think that means for the network when you suddenly get this sort of influx of new vehicles using the charging network?
Yeah, it's quite a fast influx. So Tesla is selling a ton of the Model 3. And it's a very popular vehicle on the road right now, especially in California. And that's where we basically started putting in the Tesla connector. And really the idea is just to be able to charge every EV. So we really want to be able to do that. For our network, it really is like, if you can access more EVs, you can increase utilization and you can charge more cars and grow your network organically, right? For Tesla drivers, if they find that station is convenient to where they are or happens to work out best for them, then they can use that connector. And it's not quite the same as a Tesla supercharger experience, but it's pretty close. We're trying to get it as close as we can. And it should be pretty good for them as well.
What kind of challenges did you have adding that Tesla connector? Is it being added to existing chargers, or is it new chargers that replace the old ones?
So we're adding it to our existing fleet currently, and we're trying to we're starting with a pilot program in San Francisco, basically adding it there, seeing how it goes, and making sure we get all the kinks worked out, and then growing towards Southern California and then the rest of the US.
And will Tesla drivers need to use a card to charge?
Yeah, so it's not quite plug and charge like the supercharger network. They'll need either the EVGo app, an RFID card, or they can use their credit card. So we have credit card readers on a lot of our machines, and so they can just, if they don't want to exactly join at that time, they can use the credit card to kind of start out and stuff. But we hope they get an account and look at our pricing plans and all that good stuff as well. So.
With this sort of sudden influx of a large number of new people to your network, that kind of brings us to one of the things that's been one of EVGo's kind of challenges for a while, which is that a lot of the sites, because you were so early in there, are single charger sites with no redundancy.
Right.
How do you plan to address that?
Right. We have a couple of things. Going forward for new sites, obviously not really doing single, because a lot of us are EV drivers. We also know that a single charger is really hard to rely upon if that's really you're trying to hit that destination, charge and keep going. We really want to have some redundancy, additional ports. So newer sites, we're looking at above 1, obviously 2, 4, 6, 8, and much larger in the future. We've got some cool stuff coming up. I think we're basically going to address that. It is a challenge for existing sites though. So it kind of depends upon the site really, how it was built. Some of them, the power available only supports 1 charger, may only support 2. So you kind of go, well, are we going to spend X amount of money to add additional service or bring in a new electrical feed? Or is that money better spent on another site, building from the get-go a much bigger grid connection and much big, distribution and all that kind of stuff in the parking lot. We've definitely internally looked at both angles of that. And the nice thing is if you have an EVGo site nearby that's kind of supplementing each other. So it's not exactly all the ports in one spot, but if it's just around the block or less than a mile away, it's not too painful, I think, to be able to go to a different site. For existing and future sites, we're building in future proofing. So we're looking at what is the cost effective way of, do we add in a bit bigger grid connection now? Do we kind of site some stuff? Do we trench for expansion? And it's very site specific on sort of what the future kind of brings. Is it higher power, more ports, or both? So we're looking at all of those things. So quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, the power delivery of the chargers has changed quite dramatically in a very short space of time.
Yeah, we've gone up in speed quite a bit for the newer equipment, and the vehicles are able to take the power and stuff like that. So yeah, if you would like, I can talk more about power and the future of that.
Yeah, that would be really great if
Yeah,
you could just give our viewers a bit more of an insight into that.
Yeah, so obviously a lot of our network is 50 kilowatts, but we are looking at higher power. We do have high power sites. We do have a 350 kilowatt site as well, but we're also looking at again, sort of the power levels needed to accomplish that with many ports is a bit of a challenge. Sometimes you don't have the capacity at the site to be able to bring in a huge feed. So we have looked at batteries as well for some of that. But we think there's kind of a near term around 200 kilowatts, and then the future for high power as well. We're looking at that. But the nice thing about 200 kilowatts for most vehicles is that there's basically two voltage classes. There's a 400 volt pack range, and then there's kind of the 800, 920 volt pack range. And with the higher voltage packs that we believe are coming for Porsche Taycan is pretty much the first. We're basically seeing, well, if you do a non-liquid cooled cable, you can get 200 amps on CCS and 200 amps on CHAdeMO. And you can do about 75, 80 kilowatts, depending upon pack voltage, all that good stuff. With a low voltage car, and then about 120 to 160 kilowatts on the high voltage packs. And we think that's pretty good for a lot of stuff in the near term. Of course, we're always looking towards the future. Liquid cooled cables allow you to go even higher in amperage. Some of the stuff actually goes up to 400, 500 amps. 350 amps is pretty common as well. But there's a lot of challenges. That stuff is really early in the technology in terms of the longevity, the maintenance. The cables are kind of stiff. So there's a couple of things where it's like, we've got a few of those sites deployed with the liquid cooled cables, and then we're looking towards the future of using those, but keeping a really good eye on basically all the connectors in the industry.
So I've mainly experienced the 150 and 350 kilowatt cables at the Electrify America charging stations, and
Yes.
I know that CCS is quite a finicky standard.
It's a little bit.
So that is certainly one of the challenges, is dealing with that kind of weight on the connector.
Yeah.
Because I know that the bolt that we drove down here in, you kind of have to hold the connector
Yes,
in.
while it locks, or maybe even kind of a little bit during.
Yeah.
The bolts, and I'm not sure exactly about all the other cars, but if they see resistance when they're trying to lock that connector, it'll try, and then it'll kind of go, I can't do it. A lot of it too comes from, there's a little bit of the weight factor, but it's also the torque. Sometimes these cables, you'll try to get them in the connector, and they'll kind of be at a cockeyed angle, and you'll have to hold it to make sure it's kind of parallel, or whatever geometric term you want to use, and it connects right in. So sometimes you do have to hold it and stuff. There's it's challenging, right? Yeah, and that's the Huber and Sooner cables. That's pretty much right now the CCS liquid cooled cable. That's pretty much it. There's other stuff coming pretty soon, and we really hope that that sort of stuff is going to get addressed both by Huber and Sooner, but others as well.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's exciting, but it is for the drivers, particularly for the non-tech savvy drivers, it is a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, it was like USB and all the other consumer standards. They're so much lower power, so much lower voltage current, everything. And then now we're consumers are carrying around, which is 50, 100, 150 houses worth of power sometimes. If you think about an average house, it's 2 kilowatts. You can do the math and kind of figure out, wow, this is an incredible amount of power. And we want it to be super easy and light, and last forever. And so there's a lot of stuff to try and make perfect, especially in the first revision. I think we'll kind of look back on this time and go, wow, it was a little bit crude or a little bit finicky or whatever, but we're driving the cars. It's really exciting, right?
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, we drove down here from Portland, and we're going to Texas.
Yes.
To fully charge live.
You guys are dedicated. That is great. I mean, I've been driving EVs since 2012, and part of it is just driving the cars. And you guys you drive the cars, and people that do, they kind of have different mentalities, or hey, here's the pain points that we have right now. Here's the pain points we have going, in the future. So some people that don't drive EVs, they'll kind of have different pain points that they think are important or not important. And those that drive EVs probably have, more of I'd say a refined or whatever, a view of what hey, this is an issue. Like you said, plugging in the connector. It's challenging.
Yeah. And I think for a lot of people who haven't driven EVs or don't drive them regularly, they think that the fast charging network is the be all and end all.
Yes.
And actually most people charge at home, and
yes.
I very rarely actually bother to charge anywhere else, because I have 250 miles of range.
Yeah, it's different.
I don't do that
Right.
very often.
Yeah,
so-
it's like always having a full gas tank. Like, why would you really think much about public then? But
Yeah.
I think there's kind of two things that really do leave heavily towards the public charging. Is one is rideshare. So rideshare is really, like they're on the road. A lot of drivers do about 200 miles a day, maybe more. In certain environments, like they're going to need to charge in the middle of the day, or maybe they don't have home charging. So that, and they're doing a lot of mileage, so they definitely rely a lot more on the public charging infrastructure, and that's where we really see a really bright future. We have partnerships in that space already, and the other is apartments. I live in an apartment. I have home charging, but I've lived in several apartments and either had to make it work. I mean, you literally have to be an electrical engineer sometimes to do charging at a not resident, one single house, non-multi-unit dwelling is the fancy term for that.
Yeah.
It's going to be a bit of a challenge. So having public charging for those folks, and also one of my favorites is workplace charging as well.
Yeah.
So charging in the middle of the day, charging from solar, really good grid benefits, really good for drivers as well. It sells a lot of EVs, so yeah.
Yeah, I know. I have met several people who have charging at work, and
Yes.
I know that when we lived back in England, there was charging at a park and ride.
Okay.
So we filled the car up during the day.
Yes.
We never charged it we charged it very rarely at home.
Yep,
because
that's common.
my wife would drive to work,
it was
plug
cheaper?
in, and
Was it
come
cheaper
back.
at work too?
It was free.
Yeah, so that's the thing about workplace charging. That a lot of workplaces right now, it's like there's some free. Free is awesome for the driver. It doesn't, for a few other people, it's not.
It's kind of a workplace perk.
It's a workplace perk, but it also can create entitlements. It can create things where they never charge at home and they like force getting charging at work because it's free can create irrational humans. How about that?
Well, anytime you place an incentive on something, people
Yes.
move towards that incentive.
I mean, carpool stickers, and financial incentives to get EVs. There's, same thing there. But yeah, with workplace charging, if you charge at or more than home charging costs, you can see utilization go way down.
Yeah.
Because drivers know how much it costs to charge. So, and then they'll do some mental math, not too much, hopefully, and they'll decide what they want to do. So workplace charging kind of has a little bit of that challenge to it of the cost of the infrastructure versus you're not going to really try to get more than residential rate. If you're a company that doesn't really want to just give it away as a free perk or subsidize it, it can be a little bit of a challenge. But yeah.
And we touched on pain points earlier. One of the other pain points, I think, particularly for new people coming to driving an EV, is roaming.
Yes.
And needing 13 different cards so they can charge at different
or
ones.
like 13 different apps, something like that. Yeah. I mean, I had a stack in my car of different charging networks as well, and that's it was the reality for a little while, but we're working through that. There's I think the future is you have an account and you are able to use other charging networks without paying by presenting your existing credentials for your account and the roaming agreements auto-magically working. So I know with RT, like it can, the business and the technical of doing roaming can be challenging. And so that's why, we all the, industries kind of working together and solving that. So.
And I know I've seen more roaming agreements coming out. And
yes,
that's definitely.
Yeah, I don't doubt that'll keep kind of until everybody's sort of. We make it this little fabric.
Yeah.
You'll keep seeing that.
Yeah. One of the other things that we wanted to touch upon is that obviously with legislation changing and shifting and the landscape changing and shifting, and this being such a fast developing area, we've just seen California switch to charging per kilowatt hour instead of charging per unit time.
Oh, that electric article.
Yeah.
They had some good points in there, but they did send out another one that was a little bit like, hey, there's some things that need to change. One is that they said it was banned 2020, January 1st, no more per minute, and that's not true. So there's various, for AC and DC, it's a little bit different, and I don't have the exact dates right in my head, so I don't want to say them, but basically there is some grandfathering going in place where you have your existing equipment, it can continue to bill the way it's billing, because there's a couple of things wrapped up in it. There's the per minute per kilowatt hour. There's also percent accuracy of metering, and there's like needing DC metering, which can be a little complex, and the ability for displaying pricing And there's another standard as well coming in around credit cards and open access as well. So there's all this stuff that's kind of all wrapped up in one really dry document. So it can be really confusing to parse through. But basically, we do see the writing on the wall. Per kilowatt hour pricing is coming. I don't have exact dates for it, but we do charge per minute, and there's kind of, there's a lot of hand wringing and by going per minute. And I think part of it is it has some advantages and disadvantages. So for advantages is it really makes people move on after they don't really want to sit there at 99% and keep paying that per minute price while they're not getting a lot of energy into their battery pack. Yeah. But also for those that, like, if your battery is cold and you don't have the ability, or like you were saying with your vehicle, if you have a per minute rate that's by your vehicle's potential to draw a maximum power, that's not really within your control. So you can't, you basically are like, well, I'm paying this per minute price and I can't control the speed of the battery charging. So that's an issue where it's like, well, per kilowatt hour, it's like if you need to sit at a slow rate, you sit at a slow rate, it doesn't really financially hurt you. So there's kind of like all these different little schools of thought with it, but per kilowatt hour is basically, it is coming. But what's funny is that other areas in the US, it's not a federal law, it's a state thing, and some states say you cannot, it's illegal to charge per kilowatt hour. So there's certain states, I think it's in the teens number of states left, it keeps going down, which is really good. So that way, give us options, even if and all that good stuff. So you have some states you can't do that yet. So we're going to have per minute pricing around until basically all the states say that you can charge per kilowatt hour. So okay. Yes. Well, I conquer that well.
I think that's great. Thank you so much. That's been really fascinating.
Yes.
And thank you for watching. It's been really great to have you watching. And if you are watching, are you sharing our videos? If you're not, why not? You clearly love it. You should share it with your friends.
Yes.
And obviously, if you love it, you could subscribe. Press that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. Make sure you know when our videos come out. And if you feel you can, then why not support us on Patreon? Patreon subscriptions, we have some great things coming out for you guys, so just come and check us out. Make sure that you do if you can, and if you like, you can buy us a coffee or a bottle of water. You
need a lot right now. It's really dry here.
So. It is really dry in Nevada. We need a lot to drink to come to CES, and so you could be helping us with that. So check those out, and we'll see you soon with more news from CES. Till next time, keep evolving.